Nintendo Switch 2 utilizing game key cards and the Stop Killing Games initiative getting massive attention over the past couple of weeks, we've been talking a lot about physical games and video game ownership, and unfortunately, the scummiest company in the industry, Ubisoft, is at it yet again, defending their EULA mandating players destroy physical game copies by noting, oh, we've had it worded this way for a long time and it's your fault that you've never noticed it. I have a few different things to show off, but before I get into the topic, if you enjoy the content I create, check out the links in the description, join the community and my live streams, and consider supporting through Patreon or YouTube memberships. Now, Ubisoft has been in some very hot water over the past couple of years. Really, they've had multiple failures in a row like Skull and Bones, X-Defiant, Star Wars Outlaws, Assassin's Creed Shadows. Who knows what they're going to try to release next that's most likely going to lose them $500 million freaking dollars. But over the past couple of weeks, we've of course been talking a lot about video game ownership and how you deserve to be able to basically keep copies of the games that you are purchasing or get refunds. And well, while we know that companies are trying to push towards an all-digital future as quickly as possible, a lot of people have been really looking into video game companies' EULAs, and Ubisoft's has blown up recently, and now they're defending it by basically saying you were stupid for not noticing it in the first place, which just makes them look significantly worse than they already did. So, in the ever-evolving landscape of digital gaming, a long-standing clause in the Ubisoft end-user license agreement has recently sparked a widespread outrage amongst gamers and industry observers. The provision, which requires users to destroy all physical copies of a game upon termination of its license, has been thrust into the spotlight amid growing concerns over game preservation and consumer rights. Now, of course, I'm sure most of you guys already know, I try to purchase physical copies of video games whenever the heck I can, even if they are just stupid game cards, because I would like to have the hunk of plastic for my shelf, but ultimately it still is showing these companies that we are willing to support physical, and I know that it's inevitable that one day we're not going to have these like physical products anymore unless they're like very special or collector's editions, but I'm going to hold out as long as I can. I know a lot of other people feel the same exact way, and it is absolutely BS to have a company telling you, well, if we terminate this license, right, you have to destroy your physical copy of your game. There's no way they could ever enforce this, and there's no way that people would even do this. So while Ubisoft maintains that the language is not new and dates back over a decade, critics argue it exemplifies an anti-consumer approach that undermines the value of purchased games. All they've really done by coming out and clarifying is made themselves look worse, because it means that they've had these scummy like provisions in their EULA for years and years and years, longer than we ever had really noticed. So Pirate Nation had posted this. Ubisoft wants gamers to destroy all copies of a game once it goes offline. The company has updated its EULA, which now states that those who own the product must destroy all copies at all costs, which of course did get a heck of a lot of attention on social media, because people are being told that of course, you don't own your product, but you also have to destroy the small physical item that you did actually pay for. And especially looking at some video game companies that going forward are going to charge even more for physical copies. We've heard reports that companies basically want the standard digital price to be $80, but for physical versions to be $90. Right? Because they're hoping to get as much money out of you as possible, and it's just supposed to be another like roadblock for people who want to purchase physical. Of course, they don't have to worry about production costs or storing or shipping costs when they're just doing digital games. They can rip that product away from you whenever the heck they want. And there's been a big discussion surrounding Stop Killing Games and companies pumping out live service products and then being able to shut down the servers whenever they want. They want total control. And if we do hit that all digital future, right, they are going to have ultimate control. In the post, Pirate Nation had said that Ubisoft wants gamers to destroy all copies. And he did directly quote the EULA. The post also referenced another section: Ubisoft may modify the product for any reason or without any specific reason at any time and its entire discretion, in particular for technical reasons, such as updates. Pirate Nation emphasized that Ubisoft believes consumers are responsible for checking the EULA for changes, placing the onus on them to detect unreasonable updates without company notification. Even if they did update it unreasonably, what could we really do about it? Of course, a big part of why I have this channel is to talk about anti-consumer practices and try to give you guys as much information on the gaming industry as possible, because they do try to sneak so much of this bullshit into EULAs and terms of service behind people's backs, but they're basically laughing in your face because there's nothing that you could really do when you already own a product. You can't just get a refund whenever the heck you want it. It's not like you can just say, oh, I'm going to boycott their online services and just play single player, or I'm going to even resell it, because ultimately they still made the money off of you. The post quickly amassed over 4,000 likes and hundreds of replies, with many expressing disbelief and anger. Ubisoft responded promptly via its official support account on X the same day, which is not actually a human being, it really is just an AI, but they've said, we've seen recent reports about Ubisoft's EULA focusing on a clause related to what happens when a license ends. Thanks for raising this issue. As noted in some articles, this clause is not new. It has been part of our EULA for more than 10 years, they said in its defense. It was originally designed as a formal legal provision to clarify that once a license ends, the user no longer has rights or access or to use the product. The company admitted the language may sound unusually strong or out of step with how players experience and value their games, and announced it is reviewing the clause as part of ongoing efforts to align policies with player expectations and industry evolution. Now, if they will actually revise this, who knows? I personally am pressing exit out. Ubisoft is an extremely scummy company, and right now they're going through so many major problems, but this is just such a slap in the face to the people who have been supporting them, because they're basically saying it's your fault that you haven't noticed it over all of these years, and hey, listen, just because you didn't notice it doesn't mean that it wasn't there. And of course, Ubisoft has been getting absolutely raked across the coals recently, whether we're talking about legally or by gamers, because of course, we've seen so many of their products fail. Skull and Bones, X-Defiant, Star Wars Outlaws, Assassin's Creed Shadows. I'm sure that they're going to have plenty of failures going into like 2026 if any of their games actually end up releasing. But with those aside, we're also talking about legal problems. This had happened a couple of weeks ago, but 3 Ubisoft chiefs were found guilty of enabling culture of sexual harassment. The former staff likened offices of video game company in Paris to a boys' club above the law. 3 former execs at the video game company Ubisoft have been given suspended prison sentences for enabling a culture of sexual and psychological harassment in the workplace at the end of the first big trial to stem from the Me Too movement in the gaming industry. Of course, it is relatively similar to what happened in the Activision Blizzard case. Of course, with Activision Blizzard, though, they basically had just said, we did an internal investigation and we didn't do anything wrong. And that's kind of where it ended. They did settle some suits outside of court, which does make sense because now you've got this plastered all over the Ubisoft Google search page, which of course I'm sure they're not happy about. But a lot of gamers are absolutely wrecking Ubisoft for this just insanely out of touch PR statement. Ubisoft support defends their insane EULA. It's been like that for more than 10 years. Cool, so you've been scummy for over a decade. Thanks for the confirmation. Of course, they turned off replies. As usual, they're not sorry about what it says. If they were sorry about what it said, they would have announced that they were changing it, not that, oh, we're going to actually look into it and we understand the language might sound unusually strong. No, they put it there to protect themselves, which I get a company needs to do, but at the same time, it just goes to show that you haven't been able to trust companies, you can't trust companies going forward, and honestly, you're probably never going to be able to trust companies like this again. The only major companies in the video game industry you'll be able to trust is when all of the top dogs in the industry right now end up getting kicked out and become irrelevant, and the double A studios and the indie studios kind of become the double and triple A's in the industry. Then maybe we could give those people a chance if they've proven that they can actually make content and they're willing to listen to gamers. But you still have to take everything with a grain of salt. Sega has a similar clause in their EULA as well that also states you must destroy the product if agreement is terminated by either yourself or Sega. This clause isn't mutually exclusive to Ubisoft. I wonder how many companies actually expect you to destroy your copy. They probably know that people don't, but they want it written there anyway. Ubisoft has completely lost all plots imaginable, forcing people to destroy all copies of a product, legally bought copies. Wording is interesting though, so it is indeed a product and not just a license, and it is in our possession, as in we own it, not just temporary access. So right now they're getting kind of raked across the coals by gamers for this clarification, which really just makes them look significantly worse than they already did. And their way of defending this EULA is basically saying, you guys are stupid for not noticing it in the past. So I'll be keeping my eye on this to see if they do end up updating it, but I highly doubt it. I wouldn't hold my breath for it. But that's all that I really had to discuss in this video. Let everyone know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this, give it a like, and if you didn't, give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way, but I'll talk to you all again in the next video really soon.